Welcome back to the channel, everyone. This is my game week preview with the Detroit Lions and the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, initially when we do this, and I want to say this for future reference, when we go over these teams and these game previews, we'll be having film from prior weeks. So if we're going on a game review for week 2, we'll have game week film from week 1, and we'll talk about different little things and nuances that can help teams game plan for one another and that can help one team beat the other team with some of the weaknesses or some of the strengths, which talk about said team. But today we don't have the game 1 week film to go off of just yet, so it's going to be talking over a lot of our points. And I think that the first thing that I look at when I see the Kansas City Chiefs and the Detroit Lions, it screams to me it's going to be one of those old school smash mouth football games. Now, I know with Travis Kelce, right now I think it's safe to say questionable when we're talking about him playing in the game, has the hyperextended knee. And now, the competitor in Travis Kelce, I think he's going to try it. So where the question now becomes, is he going to be at least 50 to 75% with that hyperextended knee, get the swelling down? How can he get active on that knee? And then when he's on the football field, will he be himself or will he be a decoy? Now, for the Detroit Lions, you don't really know that. For Aaron Glenn, he really doesn't know that. So you scheme him up and you defend him like he's Travis Kelce, or you could take the route and say, we don't think you're 100%. We think of Brian Branch. We think of C.J. Gardner-Johnson, a Jack Campbell, Derek Barnes. We think we can guard you with what we wouldn't typically game plan against you. And then you're going to have to prove to us, Travis Kelce, you're going to have to prove that you're still that same Travis Kelce. We know he's still a top 3 tight end in all time, but talking about him on the football field tomorrow night, I think it's safe to say, prove to us that you're that guy right now. Prove to us that you're healthy. That's the first thing I want to look at. But when I say it's going to be a bloodbath, and I think that it's going to be one of those matches where it comes down to teams chewing out the clock, defensive football game, who wins the turnover battle, who wins time of possession. I look at both of these teams and I say, okay, I understand now with Kadarius Toney, you got Rashee Rice, you got MVS, you got Sky Moore, some of those guys for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I don't think there's nothing that really intrigues me like Travis Kelce does for the Kansas City Chiefs. But knowing Andy Reid, understanding him with Matt Nagy, now how is he going to work is the new offensive coordinator. We understand a lot of the play calling goes through Andy Reid, but what will Matt Nagy's impact be on this offense in the run game and even in the passing game some? I think that now, if we're going to go with the motive and really say that Travis Kelce, we're going to say he doesn't play hypothetically for this preview. So we go with that and we say, okay, I don't have Travis Kelce as my top weapon if I'm Matt Nagy. I think this is going to be a team that's going to try to run the football. So what does that mean for the Detroit Lions? That means the defensive line. That means the linebackers. They have to step up and really be key in this game. And especially a team who's going through a linebacker battle with the Alex Anzalone, with the Derek Barnes, Jack Campbell, Malcolm Rodriguez. It's really going to be key and essential for somebody to separate themselves. We're looking at the interior, some of the guys, Ali McNeil. I don't believe Isaiah Buggs is playing, but you got him. You got Anzarike still. Then you got other guys like Broderick Martin who are younger in that room, so you got to look at that. Then you look at a Charles Harris, Aiden Hudson. It's going to be really imperative that those guys put their foot in the dirt, hold their anchor, and try to stop the run, because I think that we talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, and conversely, I could say this for the Chiefs and the Lions, 2 of the best offensive lines in football. You could probably say the Kansas City Chiefs are top 3, and then you say the Detroit Lions, if they're not even, they're 1 slot below at 4th or 5th best in the NFL. So it's very close when we talk about offensive line play with those 2 teams. And I look at the guard, center, guard. I mean, Joe Thuney, and then you got Creed Humphrey, and then you got Trey Smith. So that's what the Kansas City Chiefs are working with. Then you go over to the Detroit Lions. You got a Frank Ragnow. You got a Jonah Jackson. Then I believe you got either a mixture of Big V and then you got Graham Glasgow. So you're looking at that guard center guard mix. So that is very good for both teams. And it's interesting because I think with the Detroit Lions, they're going to be a team who's looking to run the football. Jamison Williams suspended for the first 6 games. You're looking at Amon-Ra St. Brown as a weapon. Sam Laporta, a rookie in his debut, being a big-time contributor in the passing game. Some of the other guys, Khalif Raymonds of the world, Josh Reynolds, Marvin Jones Jr. And then you're saying it's going to be Pacheco versus a David Montgomery and a Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, I think that these two run games are really geared differently because when I look at Kansas City, I see a lot of inside zone, a lot of halfback draw. Some of those things, it's not a traditional smash mouth ground and pound. It's more of a zone run, but this is an offensive line who can block the run and can block the pass. So you really have to be looking at that if you're the Detroit Lions. Then going back to the Detroit Lions side, now they're going to be working a lot under the center. They work a lot under the center with Jared Goff, and it's going to be some of the wide zones, some of the inside zones, but it's going to look a little different. Some trap runs, power runs, different types of things. Ben Johnson will call it all. So I think for me, it's coming down to what team will be most effective when they try to pull those triggers as far as running the football. You look at it and you say, okay, we got Willie Gay, Nick Bolton, we got Derek Nottie, some of the guys on the defensive line without Chris Jones. I firmly believe he's not going to play in this game. In the hard conversation you have to have with the Kansas City Chiefs, if you take away Chris Jones, now we start to look at some of the guys in that lineup. And I mean, it's guys to be optimistic about, particularly on the edge. You look at Udike Uzama, you look at some of the other guys, George Karlaftis, but I think the biggest thing is that they're not really sound as far as having an elite guy that can hold it down outside of Chris Jones. So you have to wonder, can those guys in the back end be playmakers? Some of the young corners for that team, a Justin Reed, the Willie Gays and the Nick Boltons, like I talked about, can they be playmakers for the Kansas City Chiefs and take the football away from Ben Johnson, from Jared Goff? No, last year, Jared Goff didn't turn the football over a lot. Jahmyr Gibbs, he didn't fumble the football a lot at Alabama. David Montgomery, I think that it's going to come down to, now we're looking at, we understand we're going to run the ball. I think both sides are going to run the ball. I think you guys understand that both sides are going to try to run the football. We haven't talked about that a lot, but one thing I do want to add to you, if it comes down to the passing game, and special teams is going to play a key part as well, but I think we're going to hold it to the offense and defense for right now. If it comes down to the passing game, Patrick Mahomes, for everything it's worth, he's the best quarterback in football. It doesn't look the same, and I referred to this and talked about it earlier. He's not bombing it down to a Tyreek Hill. He doesn't have that anymore, but he can nickel and dime. He can nickel and dime. He can nickel and dime, and just when you don't expect it. Now MVS is going 50 yards. Now Kadarius Toney is catching a bubble screen and getting loose. So have to be careful of that. But for the Kansas City Chiefs, that's working right into what they want to do. I think that now they run the football and run it and run it and run it, because I talked about it with Andy Reid and some of the guys with Andy Reid's teams. They've always been able to run the football just enough. I don't think they're the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think they're the San Francisco 49ers. But tomorrow night, I think they're going to be able to run the football just enough. That's the biggest question. So you go back over to the Detroit Lions, and then you say, with our receiving core, Jared Goff. Now, I talked about the Chiefs' defensive line and how outside of Chris Jones, it's not that dominant. So with Jared Goff, he's not the most mobile. But if he can sit there and be the point guard, distribute the football, get some attempts down the field, I think it's working into everything. I think Jared Goff is going to have a big-time game tomorrow. I can confidently say that. And then, like I said, with Mahomes, it's not going to be ideal without a Travis Kelce, but look at some of the things he can do. He can create. He's mobile. Now, my biggest question, really my only question that I'm really kind of concerned about with Kansas City, I look at those tackles. I look at Jawan Taylor. I look at Donovan Smith. And while I think Donovan Smith is solid, Jawan Taylor, he's above average, but Donovan Smith in those holding calls, he was really, I think he struggled with Tampa Bay because, now understand, Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady completely different. So you're going to have more room for error, more leeway, and this is something I really want to touch on with Donovan Smith. And will he be a problem for the Kansas City Chiefs? I don't think he'll be a problem, but if they really blitz and stunt and loop and send different things his way, he'll probably get some holding calls, and he may get beat, especially if you put a guy like James Houston or Aiden Hudson across from him. That's something you really got to look at. And then on the other side, you have to feel more comfortable about Jawan Taylor is a tackle for Kansas City, but I think it's still important because I'm looking at it and I'm saying, it maybe if we can get him one way, just one way. I don't think he has the best play strength. He's not the best run blocker, alluding to that point, but he's technically sound when I look at some of the things he can do and what he did for Jacksonville. It's ways you can beat them, but with Patrick Mahomes, if he flushes out of the pocket, that's one thing. Detroit Lions will have to contain him as a scrambler, but He can flush out of the pocket. Those guys are great. Matter of fact, they're elite. And referring to the Kansas City Chiefs, when it comes to the scramble drill, he gets outside of the pocket or he steps up, dumps it off to a Jarrett McKinnon, a Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Isaiah Pacheco, the guys that he has in that room. So those are the things that I'm really looking at. If I had to talk about it and what I really think will make an impact on the game, I think it's going to be one of those physical games in the trenches. You look at some of the guys for Detroit, Penei Sewell, Taylor Decker, they're very stout, and I don't think they have a true real weakness other than we're looking at the right guard position. And like I said, with the Kansas City Chiefs, the real thing that you're looking at is Donovan Smith going to be that guy? Outside of that, I feel pretty good about it. But Isaiah Pacheco, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, we're looking at that matchup. That is my key right there. Willie Gay, Nick Bolton stepping up, Jack Campbell, Malcolm Rodriguez, those linebackers, the collectiveness. I think that there's different things you can talk about, but this is how I think the game will actually go. I think it's going to be one of those nastier ones, and I'm going to give my score prediction, everything that it's worth. I want to talk about it, but if I had to say, feet to the fire right now, I'm going to give it 24-21. 24-21. I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs. It's a tough one. It's a tough decision, but I do want to say when you're atop the AFC, atop the NFL, I want to see the team knock you off. And that's not saying the Detroit Lions can't and won't do it because they're very capable. But I'm going to give them that challenge. I want to see, do they rise to that challenge and knock the defending champions off of their throne? What do you think will be the most important keys going into this game? This is my 2023 Week 1 Thursday Night Football NFL season opener. What do you guys think? Let me know down below in the comments. Let's talk about it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe as always. That's going to do it for today's preview. And now, we out.